Hello, my name is Philip Totaro. I'm the founder and CEO of market research firm IntelStor. Welcome to your weekly dose of truth to power. Truth to Power examines data driven insights for the energy sector with a focus on renewables. On this week's episode, I'm going to recap the Wind Summit event in Houston, Texas last week and give an overview of the panel discussions and presentations on all the hottest O&M topics impacting the US market. It was a fantastic turnout for the Wind Summit event in the USA, the first one we had here. There were more than 80 participants from 45 different companies represented. Those participants were largely the leadership of asset owners or operators, specialist ISP companies, as well as a number of key supply chain companies who are involved in refurbishment or aftermarket supply of things like bearings and gears, etc. I'm really grateful to everybody that showed up, and if you missed it, you really missed a lot. The event kicked off with a one-on-one discussion with Yilmaz Bengal from DWT. He touched on a number of the impacts from the tax and budget bill that will impact repowering and why asset owners shouldn't wait if they're hoping to be able to repower their project. The deadlines faced by the industry, it's creating a land rush for cranes, and some asset owners could be left out in the cold if they don't start their repower now. Some projects could still justify a repower if power purchase agreement prices continue to go up, but people need to be able to move quickly if they can afford to. Next, we dove into lightning, which has become the number one wind turbine repair cost in the USA. A panel comprising Rosemary Barnes from Partalote, Joel Saxon from WeatherGuard Lightning Tech, and John Zalar from IWTG Consulting walked through why we were seeing more damage from lightning strikes in the USA compared to other countries. The fact that many strikes were happening outside the design envelope for which the OEM lightning protection system was certified, as well as the fact that full tip to ground testing was sometimes not being conducted during the installation and commissioning process, leaving turbines vulnerable to lightning strikes. That's pretty shocking, pardon the pun. Next, we had one of the highlights of the entire event, which was a panel discussion on access to spare parts. The group which was assembled for that panel was absolutely top class, and I can tell you there was some wheeling and dealing happening backstage before the panel even came out. I think some safe harbor turbines got sold. During the panel, we heard from the group on the importance of warehousing critical components and not trying to rely on a just in time supply chain, which, frankly speaking, has been struggling to keep up with demand lately. They also talked about the impact on spares from tariffs and how it's leading to an increased demand for part refurbishments being done domestically in order to avoid an excess import cost and those tariffs that are being applied. Besides the tariffs, longer lead times and lack of availability have played a major part in the downtime that some asset owners and operators have seen, and project availability as well as capacity factors are starting to be impacted. It's resulting in some folks saying, do we need to be able to reverse engineer some blade designs and some other technologies that we just can't seem to get anywhere else? The operator's keynote panel was an extremely interesting discussion. They dove into the process for selection of an asset operations and maintenance partner, whether it's an OEM or an ISP. Brian Thielman from Peer Services noted that worker safety and quality of repairs simply cannot be ignored, even as the O&M market is growing in the US. The panel also touched on the criteria necessary for ongoing OEM collaboration post-warranty and how an asset owner can hope to backstop a full service agreement if the OEM doesn't live up to their obligations. Now, after a delicious lunch, the conference started up again with a panel on CMS. And Ben Jones from EDPR joined Josh Potter from Pattern Energy and Heinrich Dieck from Phoenix Contact to discuss the latest technology and trends in the market. They talked about the trend for asset owners to want to take more control over their data and their asset performance analysis. More owners want to move away from either OEM or third party analytics providers to more of an in house model. They talked about the fact that while the industry is making good use of CMS technology nowadays, since the costs have become cheaper relative to turbine size, but the fact that there are challenges that still remain to widespread adoption of CMS that would move the industry to full predictive maintenance. Data access rights with OEMs was cited as one issue, and the cost of retrofitting sensors or aftermarket CMS technology was another one. Panel on the impact of insurance was next, with a fantastic overview provided by Anthony Martin of Aegis Insurance Services. He walked through a number of critical issues that owners and operators have when obtaining a policy or filing a claim. Specifically, the fact that larger turbine sizes and higher commodity costs are leading to higher absolute values of component replacement costs. For example, there was one issue that he cited where the replacement of a Vestas V162 blade was about $2.4 million for one blade replacement versus the replacement for entire blade set on a GE 1.5 being around $700,000 a few years ago. All of that is leading to a necessary increase in insurance premiums, which is obviously undesirable for everybody involved. Probably one of the most interesting topics raised was whether the independent service providers would be able to partner with insurance carriers to provide a full backstop that would be equivalent to the scope of service that OEMs offer under a full wrap service contract. The industry certainly had a hunger for this capability amongst the independent service providers, but insurance has ever only been written once or twice for a major operator to do that, and it was on an asset that they had built and developed and then sold off the majority stake while maintaining operational control over that same project portfolio. So there's definitely an opportunity there. There's definitely a demand for it, but the insurance industry and the ISPs need to get together and figure out how to make that happen, because there's a lot of asset owners that want to be able to move away from an OEM, and insurance is being one key component to that, supply chain issues being another one. After the group took a coffee break, we were back with a panel entitled More Blades, More Problems. Because besides lightning damage, which we talked about towards the beginning of the event, there are pervasive issues with things like root inserts on the blade, leading edge erosion, transportation damage, and a plethora of other issues, which have continued to escalate the costs of blade repairs to now be equivalent to about a third of the annual maintenance cost of wind turbines in the United States. While evolving blade technology like the shift from thick airfoils to skinny blades and the adoption of carbon pultrusions over fiberglass spar caps, all that was done for weight and transport ability of longer blades, it's introduced a new set of technical challenges and certification risks to the industry. Frankly, a lack of adequate test procedures continues to contribute to some of the issues that are seen in the field, as well as the identification of issues that are serial defects and who's going to accept responsibility for that. Obviously the OEM should be taking responsibility, but the certification bodies definitely have some skin in the game as far as certification of a design that ends up having a serial defect and can't be fully tested except out in a practical field environment. Well, the conclusion of day one saw the Asset Life Extension panel underscore what we heard at the beginning of the conference. Specifically, the landscape for some operators was changing because of the new policy in place on qualification for tax credits that has driven asset refurbishment or repowering up until very recently. The panel discussed how it was critical to leverage operational data to determine when assets might be at risk of failure or seeing a degradation in performance so that action can be taken in advance of that kind of degradation impacting asset availability or financial profitability. Full component replacement or refurbishment within the first 10 years of operation was seen as a necessity regardless of the production tax credit requalification. Some makes and models of turbines are, frankly, even subject to annual major component exchanges that necessitates a crane call out, that's certainly concerning and expensive. Now, for the start of day two, I provided a brief market update. I'll share that full analysis in a later Truth to Power episode, but one thing that came out of the Q&A after I made that presentation is that if the industry doesn't collaborate more willingly on things like data licensing between OEMs and asset owners or operators, or other ways which require people to put aside their egos, the industry is going to be forced into collaborating through regulatory compliance. Either we can figure it out ourselves or somebody's going to force us to. Next was one of the highlights of the event, certainly for me and a lot of others as well. And it was an exclusive look at an absolutely amazing success story on blade repairs. Ashley Crowther, the Chief Commercial Officer at Aerones, presented how in September, Aerones completed repairs on 293 blades using their robotic systems. That is more than 15 times the number of repairs in a single month that a rope access team would even be capable of. Ashley suggested that it would have taken a total of up to 45 rope access teams, the same amount of time, and probably at significantly higher cost, to complete the same scope of repairs. Besides that being a remarkable feat, they did so without exposing rope access teams to the risk of dangling off a turbine. And it was accomplished at not only a lower cost per repair, since they avoided the excessive insurance, but main takeaway for me was the fact that the repair quality hasn't suffered. And Aerones is poised to break their own record with close to 400 repairs scheduled for this month in October, and a minimum of another 700 turbines already booked for repairs in the early part of 2026. And this is exactly the kind of story we want to bring you through the Wind Summit events, and lessons that you frankly won't learn or stories you just won't hear at any other event. Now, last but not least was a panel discussion on up-tower repairs. We got a brief presentation from Soren Kellenberger of CNC Onsite in Denmark. And for those of you who aren't familiar, CNC Onsites developed an up-tower precision machining capability to repair things like pitch gears, yaw gears, bearing raceways, some gearbox repairs. It's a fantastic and absolutely mind-blowing capability. And that is the type of critical technology that the industry needs right now to avoid crane callouts, which was the majority of the discussion of that panel. The bulk of the expensive repairs in the industry right now are due to crane callouts, and something that we need to be able to develop new technologies and solutions to avoid. Any technologies like onboard cranes, robotic inspection and repairs, as well as in situ repair technologies that avoid the crane callouts are absolutely going to be favored in the coming years. Personally, my overall takeaway from the event is that the O&M side of the industry is poised to be very busy in the USA in the next 3 years. We've got 155 gigawatts to maintain today, with another 30 gigawatts likely to come online by the end of 2027 as the industry rushes to qualify for tax credits that are still available to us. Without production tax credit requalification driving repowering past 2027, the industry is going to need to be smarter about how they manage asset life and component life consumption. We can't go running turbines into the ground anymore. It will be absolutely critical to leverage data on asset health to drive decisions as margins get squeezed and spares become harder to get a hold of. While the feedback from participants of the event was overwhelming and positive, I want to ensure everybody that these events are going to continue to maintain the quality of the discussion that we had in Houston and that we also previously had in Australia. The experts who were on the stage were there because of their expertise and not because their company sponsored the event. This event wasn't run by a political lobby group. And our main focus with this Wind Summit event series is to provide asset owners, operators, service companies, and the supply chain with knowledge that they can take away and implement to operate better and at a lower cost. For those of you who were there, you got the full experience and benefit of the lessons learned and the connections you made. If you weren't able to make it, please do join us next time, and we'll make sure that you win just like everybody else who was there. Wind Summit will be back in Houston on the 3rd and 4th of November 2026, and we're reaching out for speakers and sponsors already. We're also expanding to Canada with an event planned in Toronto on the 13th of May 2026. Thank you for joining me this week. I'm Philip Totaro, and this has been your weekly dose of truth to power. Follow us on IntelStor's YouTube channel as well as your favorite audio platforms. And visit www.intelstore.com to join more than 200,000 subscribers to our renewable energy data solutions. A full analysis of the renewable energy market in the USA and the rest of the world is available to subscribers. And you can register today for the next Wind Summit event in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Just visit www.windsummit.org and join hundreds of your industry colleagues to discuss all the latest trends in O&M. We hope to see you there.